we're her guinea pigs, right? Well, we're just going to move around every day and see what she likes best.
I figured that, one, it's really, because a lot of people will come to yoga and they're like, oh, I got here early just for my spot. Okay, well,
they want
let's
the same spot every time?
Every single time. And we're creatures of habit. Why not, right? Mm-hmm. But what would happen, or how would your body respond if you were in a different space? Mm-hmm. Let's open that up for challenge or for change. Mm-hmm. So I'll probably do the same rotation, but it is something different. I usually teach from that corner, but we've had a couple of instructors that have been teaching from different areas of the room, and just cool. Trying from different things. So today we're going to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga, which a lot of people don't hear about. They assume that yoga is what we experience in the West as just the postural practice. And there's the meditation practice, there's the pranayama or breathwork or energy exchange practice, and then there is the asana practice, which is postural. So asana is going to be part of the 8 limbs that we discuss, but we are going to be starting with Yama. So any of the 8 limbs can be reviewed, they can be experienced. You can start from any area within the 8 limbs and you can use it in a fluid manner, or you can do it in a step-by-step process. So I'm, just for ease, we're going to start with the Yama, move into Niyama, and move up through the different branches, but you can practice pranayama and then you can practice Yama. It's a tree, so it is circular. You don't have to master one step before you move on to the next. But for ease in teaching, we're going to go step by step. You can access this information from anywhere, as Michelle had asked. This is very vast in books. There's a lot of different books that are out there on it. One that I really like that is still new to me and I am still currently reading is True Yoga by Jenny Lee. It's Jennie. She has an approach to the 8 limbs that is just really easy to digest. It is very like to our modern world. It's really, how we work through life now and how we can apply these different principles. So the 8 limbs of Patanjali is what you can search as Patanjali. Patanjali. And they're really just core principles. So the spiritual, ethical, mental, physical, emotional practices that help enrich our lives. They help us heal and serve as a compass for living a meaningful and purposeful life. Patanjali was a revered scholar in the yogic tradition. He is credited with authoring the Yoga Sutras, and that's a foundational text for classical yoga. And in the Yoga Sutras, the 8 limbs are referred to as ashtanga, Ashtanga. You may also hear that as another form of Hatha yoga, but ashtanga actually means 8-limbed. So ashta meaning 8, anga meaning the limb in Sanskrit, and Patanjali is estimated to have lived in India somewhere between the 5th century BCE to the 4th century CE. So he has these Yoga Sutras broken down in about 4 books, and within book 2 or section 2 is where he talks about the 8 limbs. There are different paths of yoga. So you have karma yoga, you have jnana yoga, which is philosophy and self-discovery, you have bhakti yoga, which is devotion, you have hatha yoga, which is the asana practice that we know of here, and you actually have the royal path. So you have a couple different ways that you can incorporate yoga in your life. The royal path is the one that recognizes the 8 limbs the most. Okay. So the first Yama that we're going to be talking about they're moral qualities that are necessary for connection to our soul nature. These behavioral foundations make life more comfortable and spiritually fulfilling as we cultivate relationship with ourself, the world, and the divine. So there are 5 Yamas. The first 2 limbs, the Yamas and the Niyamas, and you can find text on just those particular limbs. They include a breakdown of 5 other subtext. The rest of them are singular. So today is going to be a little full with 5 different yamas that we're going to learn about. And a lot of these you're going to go, okay, I do know that. I've experienced this in my life. I already apply it this way. But what we're going to look at is there's always an outer component on how we're expressing ourselves, and then there's an inner component on how we are working with our lives, how we're responding to life, and what we are spiritually fulfilling for ourselves. So there's two different components. We're going to look at how maybe this particular yama, how we're using it to serve others, how we're using it to serve ourselves. We're also going to look at it as the yamas. These are things that they're almost like a restriction that you're not to do. So, as an example, in the first yama, which is ahimsa, is non-harming. Then we move into the niyamas, and those are things that maybe you would try to take on as a value or an ethic or a moral that you're trying to use. So we're just going to focus on the yamas today. And so the first yama, like I said, is ahimsa. A-H-I-M-S-A. Ahimsa. So himsa means harming, and you put the A in front of it, that means non. And if we're applying it in a way for our modern world today, it would be peacefulness, finding peacefulness. So the traditional text is non-harming. We also bring in a different side of it, more of a peaceful side of it, more of a positive side of it. And in Jenny Lee's book, this is where she kind of talks about the two parts of the different Sanskrit, going with the traditional text and then applying it to how we live our lives today. Okay, so bring in compassion and forgiveness. You're acting from intention and being aware of thought forms. So what would you say in being in non-harming? What are some of the things that you're able to, this is where the journaling comes in. So ask yourself, where in your daily life, in your particular lifestyle, in your family, in your work, in your mind, where are you practicing ahimsa, or where are you not practicing ahimsa? And we're going to share a couple of those ideas because we may find, like I said yesterday, this is a living text. So where Tina is moving through life and experiencing things and sees it from one angle, someone else might find it. And then you're going to be able to open up doors and say, okay, well, this is where I'd like to be able to practice more ahimsa. I didn't even think about it in that way. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few moments just to see where, just off the top of the head, where you might be finding that you're practicing or not practicing ahimsa, which is non-harming or finding peacefulness that you have in your life. And then we're going to go through more of a deeper discussion where we can apply this particular yama.
So in our daily lives, a non-harming, finding peacefulness, like just ways that we try to find peace in the daily lives of what we're doing. That's what I'm writing.
There are no wrong answers ever in this, because we are all on this journey in a different place. And there's always something to learn from these. You never master them. They're just helping us to move through life. So there's no wrong answer, just what comes off the top of your head. And then like I said, we'll go deeper into it to where you might even not realize where you are, where you're not applying this particular yama. And if any of you are interested in podcasts, this is an Apple and I have it on Spotify. Shannon Crow is the name of the person that is the host for this podcast. And it's called The Connected Yoga Teacher, I believe. And she breaks down, she has part one and part two about the 8 limbs. And this is where she interviewed Jenny Lee, and this is where I heard about Jenny Lee and found her book, which actually was something I have been looking for since I started, my yoga journey. I've bought many different books on the subject. Some of them are a little bit more in-depth. Some of them are harder to understand just because it's based in Sanskrit. This one was really easy, and I'm really grateful that I found it. So I'd love to be able to share that information to help others on their journey as well, and to honor where I am learning my information from? Okay, so does anybody want to start? Just give an example of where you are finding that you practice ahimsa and where you could probably use a little more practice using ahimsa.
So when I'm here at work, that's the only time I feel like I really find true peace is at work. And then when I go home, I try to bring these things into my home. I feel like I'm blocked by like everyone that I live with. Like I feel like I'm not able to get that peacefulness that I'm looking for.
Okay.
So what was that? What would that be like
when you are in your home environment, how are you able or not able to practice non-harming?
Yeah, well, I don't try to harm.
Right,
But
so let's look at what harm means, because we always think that it's an act of violence, right? Or hurting somebody either by our words or physical, right? But we could also look at it when you're telling someone, like if you're talking about somebody and you're not telling full truth, that could be harmful. Or if you are stealing time away from yourself in order to provide more for your family and creating imbalance for yourself, that's creating harm for you. So finding peacefulness is a way to create non-harm because it's almost like that balance piece. But when you're looking to create non-harm, that can be anything that you may have as self-talk for yourself. If we have self-talk that is negative, I can never do this, I will never be that, I have body shaming, I'm not smart enough, I can't, so that's actually a harming. So when you're trying to practice ahimsa, when you're saying I don't have anything that is of value to contribute, that's actually creating a harming for yourself. So finding that peacefulness allows us to come from a place that we appreciate everybody and everything that is around us and understand the journey that they are on. In order for them to be able to grow, we have to allow them to experience things as long as they are not harming us as well. So ahimsa is not just what we are doing to other people, but what are we allowing other people to do to us when we allow them to treat us in a manner that is not, kind or loving. Sometimes we're in toxic relationships. That can be non-harming. So how are we creating that non-harming? How are we perpetuating that non-harming? So it can be applied to everything and anything. And that's what makes this so valuable, because we can find this key in any part of our lives, whether it's our external world or our internal worlds. How are we treating ourselves? How are we treating others? How are we allowing others to treat us? Right? So, does anybody have any other suggestions that might lead us into more discussion on ahimsa?
I had an awareness as you were speaking.
Okay.
So I have been practicing this consciously in personal and professional life in all areas, but I find that I need to stop the self-talk as I'm doing it. So as you learn a new pattern, I think sometimes we all handle it differently. For me, I might be at home announcing I'm taking quiet time for me, but I might be almost, instead of just doing it, I'm stating it or grumbling about doing something that nobody asked me to do. But as a mom and a wife and a female, I assume that this needs to be done, so I need to do it. And I might have a little bit of an attitude about it, but it's all self-inflicted. And I have the ability to control that. So the awareness of just doing it and not stating that I'm doing it, or not feeling resentful or expressing resentment about it, will be a nice next step for me.
Exactly. Amazing. So we'll move through the 5 that we have, and you'll find that some of them will superimpose on the others. The next one that we have is Satya, and it's Satya, which means truthfulness. And that moves us into integrity. So Sat, S-A-T, meaning your true nature. So living an authentic life to the best of your ability without lies, deceit, white lies, delusion to yourself and to others, and being honest, that may not get you a lot of friends, but it'll get you the right ones, which is a quote by John Lennon. So thinking of how different ways that we are living in our own truth. What are the ways that you do live in your own truth? And what are some ways that you allow some of the untruths just to be accepted in order to get through, to get by, to be in the status quo?
Say that again.
Satya? Like
I don't know ways of living in your own
truth. And how are you not? What are you allowing to be an untruth, but you're just accepting it as either a part of life, or you're just accepting it because it's not something that you want to rock the boat about, or it just meets status quo and you just want to get through with the least amount of conflict. So what are you accepting as a deceit or something that is not truthfulness in your life?
Oh boy.
This one's a deep one, and it really is. And we're just skimming the surface. Like right now, because a lot of people have not heard of the 8 limbs, we are just, this is really an introductory, as far as I'm concerned, because you can really do some real deep work on any one of these limbs throughout your journey. These particular limbs, you could spend probably a whole workshop on any one of these yamas. But, this is just to create some awareness around these things, and to really help us clear some of the things that we're allowing in our life that are not serving us, and finding a path to have more awareness.
So we're writing the things out now?
Yep, you just write out a few little ideas, whatever comes to you right now. It doesn't have to. You can go into more depth, in your own time, and do some extra journaling. And we're going to go back through these quickly. I just want to bring these to the attention, and then we're going to see how they work together. So does anyone want to share how they may be living in their truth, or how they may need to improve or change something in their life in order to live in truth?
So I have been accepting an employee as he shows up, because it's easier than coaching him, because I just got the realization recently that the decisions he's making that I've empowered him to make are not aligning with our core values. And that's easier than having the conversation that you're not the right guy. So that conversation is forthcoming. But this just confirms that decision I made a couple of days ago needs to be implemented.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I just took it as assurance that keep going on that path.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we decide we're ready to do something and then we second guess ourselves.
Absolutely.
I'm sure I'm the only one that does that.
Right. we all do it on a daily basis. Sometimes I know I'm included in that. So, anybody else? I mean, you could give an example of how you are living in your truth, or how you would like to see some improvement in that. Okay, so the next one we have is the third yama, and that's asteya. Asteya. Asteya means non-stealing, and that moves us into generosity. So move into the awareness that you have everything that you need, that you are enough, that you have enough. Lack causes a desire to covet. So that may be time, money, relationships, artificial needs. So a desire or a want is a cause for stealing. So you could be stealing peace, you could be hoarding. An effort to feel only good things is a stealing. We're stealing the experience away from ourselves or others. So this one is, I think a lot of people will have more, because of the world that we live in today, we have more experience with this particular limb right now. We are in a society that really is looking for more and more and more all the time. Bigger and better is always the goal. And bigger and better is not something that is always serving us. And when we're only looking for bigger or better, or we're looking to have a house filled of things that we don't even need or want, that is still considered the part of this day, which is the non-stealing. So being in a place where you're taking time or energy away from something, yourself, or someone. There's a lot of different examples that are within relationship, but also, how generous are we being with our time? How generous are we being with, ourselves, or allowing ourselves to go through different changes? Are we giving ourselves the space, or are we running ourselves so busy all the time that we have no time to figure out where we are and find our inner compass? Are we always in the middle of stealing our own time? What are some of the desires or the wants that we have that are taking up time with our families? Energies. So another example of the non-stealing would be when we're using information and not really giving credit. When we have come up with a thought, or if you are in a situation where you are in a project and you have someone else that's contributing ideas and you take them on as your own, that is an example sometimes of something as simple as we don't even think of it. We think of stealing as going into a store and taking something that doesn't belong to us, but that can apply to a lot of different things, things that are not for us to have, and yet we want to covet them. So does anybody have an example for this Yama? Or would you like to move on to the next one? Okay, so we'll move on to Brahmacharya. So Brahmacharya is BRAHMACHARYA, Brahmacharya. And it's the right use of energy, it's moderation and self-control. So you can see how all of these are kind of coming together, and they're things that we already know, they're universal truths. But it's bringing it to the forefront so that we can examine how we are living our lives and how we would like to make some change and some shifts and to create awareness around some of these things. So with Brahmacharya, how are you using your energy wisely and with intention? Are you avoiding excess and overindulgence? So some examples are your right motives. Are your motives correct? Are you being suppressive or draining in anything, or is anybody that is suppressing or draining you in your actions? If you're doing something without the right mindset and it's draining you, then maybe there's not enough moderation with the use of energies. Presenting ourselves to be something that we are not. An endless energy to be skinnier, stronger, happier. So are we always on that treadmill of trying to make ourselves more than what we are, which we are actually perfect, right, just as we are now. So what are we doing? How are we using our energy? How are we practicing moderation or self-control? In some of the traditional texts, you're going to find this as a celibacy. Sexual energy is energy. And so the spiritual teachers would sometimes abstain from that in order to use their energy towards more spiritual growth. So if you're going to do any more deeper exploration within these 8 limbs, you may find that come up as a celibacy. But within our modern culture, it's more of a tendency to use it's the right use of our energies, and that's all of them. So we'll move into the 5th Yama, which is Aparigraha, and it's APARIGRAHA. And this is the non-hoarding, or finding gratitude. So that moves us into gratitude. When we let go of greed, we come to understand the true meaning of our birth and of our existence. Taking only what we need and keeping only what serves us in the moment, and letting go when the time is right. So this is an act of being able to let go. And that moves into the non-hoarding. We're always, again, trying to accomplish more. We're trying to have more instead of having the simplicity of things. Our houses are full of things that we don't need, that we haven't used in over a year, and yet we feel the need to hold on to them instead of being able to let go. This can even come in forms of relationships. So relationships with people or things, they're not always meant to sustain throughout a whole lifetime. Some may and some may not, but knowing when that relationship is no longer serving either one of you and being able to be grateful for the things that you've learned and to be able to let that person go. So it can be applied to a lot of different areas in our life, and we think hoarding is just accumulation of material, but hoarding can be a lot of even mental thought processes, belief systems, hoarding onto belief systems that we feel is necessary because our grandparents had that or because our parents had that. So now I have to have that. Well, that might not be clear. That might not be true for you. So material possessions, it can also be food and obsessing about outcome. So this particular Yama offers us the freedom to work and to do what we love without worrying about the outcome, the freedom to rely less on external and material possessions to bring us happiness, and the freedom to experience everything that life has to offer. So when we are able to move into the gratitude portion of this Yama, when we find gratitude with what we do have in our lives, we're able to let go of the things that are no longer serving us with ease. We have a lot more freedom.
I think I'm kind of confused. So, like, knowing when to let go of something. Like, is this part of this Yama? So
it can be part of a couple of the. That's why they all kind of work together. Some of them may move you, like the truthfulness and integrity. You might be practicing that one, but you'll find that the peace or the non-harming is something that you're going to cultivate in order to be able to accomplish the truthfulness part. You know, so these might be working together in some way. And you can still apply, like the letting go and the non-hoarding can be used when it comes to the non-stealing and creating generosity and being able to know how to balance time and to let go of things that are no longer serving you so that you have the right use of energy, brahmacharya. So they kind of all come together and you can use one in conjunction with another. Yeah.
what did you say about the outcome?
Obsessing about it.
Obsessing about the outcome.
So that kind of comes into the mental belief systems and obsessing about, if I get this done, then I'll have that outcome. But I have to do step A, B, C, and D instead of trusting the process and moving through it and learning what you're supposed to be learning and obsessing about how you're going to get from point A to point B, and maybe doing overwork or over analyzing to get the exact outcome that you want, because we're trying to control the outcome instead of allowing it to be a process that is organic, that is maybe divine. Sometimes we are so busy trying to create and design an outcome that we want that we miss something that it could have become even greater because we're just so focused on it's going to be this, and this. And you know, we miss an opportunity somewhere. So So that would be non-hoarding, or finding gratitude just in the process and allowing things to just unfold as they need to. And some of this does take some practice in a higher power. So source, universe, higher power, trusting and knowing that the intuition that we have is going to be something that is guiding us, being able to find that place of peace and calm. That's why we do some meditation, so that we can gain clarity and we're not on paths that are not serving our higher purpose in a race to get to an end result that we may not even really want. So finding that time for self-reflection, using some of these practices, and being able to cultivate an outcome or a happiness or a purpose that we're really loving to live, instead of just day by day just sticking to the grind and creating. We create all these things and we go, well, I really don't want that, so let's start creating again. Let's obsess about something else again. Let's create more this way. And so there's a lot of different things that we can talk about when it comes to these yamas and yamas. So does anybody have anything that they'd like to share about any of these, or do you have any questions or clarification that you need on any of the particular limbs or yamas? Okay.
Well, I'm like that one who's always obsessing about the outcome.
Okay.
And I just don't know how to not obsess about it and know when it's organically happening instead of.
That's where this says that. That's why I chose to use some of the other texts that I read, because in the traditional yoga it says non-hoarding, but her perspective is generosity or gratitude, right? So that tells us what the traditional part is, non-hoarding, which is a belief system that I have to accomplish A, B, C, D, and E before I even get to the outcome that I'm controlling, because this is what I want to happen, right? Gratitude allows you to say, I'm thankful that I can be here today. I'm thankful that I can be able to contribute what I'm doing. I'm in breaking it down into being more of a gratitude energy instead of a doing energy. And when you find gratitude, then it just flows. The outcome is going to be the outcome. An example that I know for you specifically is being step by step within a process and being afraid of missing one of those steps, instead of trusting that that person that's receiving from you may not need what that step is. They may need more in something else, and just trusting the process and knowing that the outcome is still going to be divine, and that it's going to be what it needs to be, even if you miss that one step. That it's not going to all fall apart. That there's something else that is guiding the process for you and that person. Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some practices. Shannon Crow has some different applications of how to practice these yamas. There's a lot of different affirmations that you can use, but I really liked how she puts it into real life here. So for like ahimsa, she says to choose a way to demonstrate self-love. That's one way to practice ahimsa. Choose a way to demonstrate self-love. And that is balancing out the non-harming. So ahimsa could be anger. That's the first thing we come to, we think of anger, or hurting someone else, words or otherwise. But it could also mean a need to always be right. That can be harming to someone else. The need to always be right. Not having respect or care for yourself or others. That falls under the ahimsa, or non-harming. what we find that we are in competition with ourselves and others. So an example of within yoga, when you're on your yoga mat, are you always pushing your body further than what it needs to go that particular day? Or are you respecting your body? Are you taking another workout class, a real high intensity one, when really your body needs to say, hey, I need a restorative class today. Are you going to listen to me or are you going to push me? Because in your mind, you think that if you don't get in that next Buddha yoga, that you're not going to have that perfect body, or you're not going to have that stress release, or you're not going to have it. So again, that's the mental capacity with the belief system, with the challenge that we're always pushing ourselves more, instead of maybe listening to our body and saying, I'll go for a run tomorrow morning, but today I need to do a restorative practice. Or when you're in a pose and you feel that edge and pushing past that edge to be able to accomplish a pose that you think you need to have in order to do a yoga. Oh no, I'm going to get this today. Well, maybe your body's not ready. I'm going to have this today within my work and my job. I have a goal. I'm going to accomplish this now. Maybe you're not ready to bloom. Maybe there's still more work to be done. But you're pushing forward and not listening to yourself or your body or the experience that you're having. You're not allowing yourself the time to process in order to grow. We're always so ready to have it right now. That's harming. So practicing relaxation, taking a step back, taking a moment to just work through things, self-care, respect. So choose a way to demonstrate self-love for yourself today or every day. That's one way to start practicing ahimsa. One of the spiritual teachers, Sai Baba, is before you speak, ask yourself, is it kind, is it necessary, is it true, and does it improve the silence? That is another way to practice ahimsa. Before you speak, before the words even come out of your mouth, is it kind? Is it true? This is where sometimes we move into the next one, which is truthfulness. Even though it may be true, come back to ahimsa, is it kind? So sometimes we feel the need to speak truthfulness because this is true. Is it universal truth or is it your own personal truth? It's an experience that you had, which is your own personal truth, but that does not always mean that it's going to be applicable to somebody that you're trying to help. So yes, it may be true, but is it also kind? Is it going to improve the silence and is it necessary? So you're actually balancing and practicing ahimsa and satya at the same time. So moving into satya, which is truthfulness and integrity, the practice is to tell someone a positive truth about someone else. A positive truth. Not a belief of your own, but a positive truth. And being honest, we used the example of in a practice or even in your work environment, being honest with where you are and what your qualifications and skill set are. Before you move on to beginning another project or to teaching or anything that you're trying to accomplish within work, making sure that you're honest. Have I done the work myself? Is this something that I'm able to apply? Do I really know this? Have I been able to embody some of this before I start moving into displaying it or creating it? The truthfulness of where you are and what your skill set is. That is a big one for some of the teachers. They say, if you don't know it, don't teach it. I mean, I understand that sometimes teaching it is the experience of learning even deeper, but really do the work and know where you are within that. So if you don't have the skill to do something within your job, learn that. take the time to learn that, but being honest with yourself of what your capacity really is. And that moves into not being afraid to ask others for help. Being able to rely on others and asking for help. We don't have to do everything all by ourselves, all alone. So the quote that I had for this one was the John Lennon, being honest may not get you a lot of friends, but it'll get you the right ones. So being truthful with who you are, this was one that even used, don't be a delusion to yourself, and don't pretend like you're somebody that you're not, just in order to fit in or to be within the group of people that you want to be with. Presenting yourself as being somebody that you're not does not get you the right people around you. You want people that are going to be loving and supporting of your authentic self. Authenticity is more important than the facade that we can create.
Can you say the quote?
Yes. Being honest may not get you a lot of friends, but it will get you the right ones. This was a bit of a struggle for myself. This is something within my own integrity was always honest. Honesty for me was a big deal throughout my life. And so I always felt the need to be honest with my partner, with everyone, but sometimes that honesty was not helping them. And that was a lesson that I needed to learn, that honesty is there as for my experience, but that doesn't always mean that I need to push that honesty onto someone else when they're trying to work through their stuff. I can be there if they ask for it, then I can share it, but using it as a tool to be right isn't always the best way either. So we can use honesty and truthfulness as a tool to be right. I know I'm right. I'm to tell you why I'm right, and this is the honest truth. This is the reality. That doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve them. So that's another way of practicing that. So within the third yama, which is ashta, find a quote that speaks to you. And then research that person and find 3 things about them. And this is giving us the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper. We do see a lot of things were, internet based. So we see something, we find that, we like that, it resonates with us, we may be able to use it and apply it. But then when we find the source of it, that source may not be in alignment with a universal truth or with our personal truth. And then so we're going around and we're kind of using that quote from this source that we may not align with right now. So really going a little bit deeper into investigating things for ourselves before we take it on as our own personal truth, and knowing where the source is coming from and that it is in alignment with us. So Shannon actually used an example that she was using a quote within her, I think within her classes or something. She did a little bit of research, and where it came from she really didn't feel comfortable with. So she ended up stopping using that quote, even though she liked what it said and it resonated. The source was not a valid source for her. So that, and then also the non-stealing and generosity, is being able to give credit where credit is due. Sometimes we're in a situation where we will take more credit than what we've contributed into a project or into an outcome, and allowing ourselves to be humble enough to say, this was a team effort, or this person deserves credit for this. I did not do it. This person really did the work for it, and giving that credit to the person. And that practice is non-stealing.
You said find 3 facts that are true about them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. The 4th yama, let me give you the quote for this one. So this is Donna Farhi. She's a world-renowned yoga teacher, and she says that when we feel connected to the vastness of life and are confident of life's abundance, we are naturally generous and able to practice the 3rd yama, which is non-stealing or asteya. So when we feel connected to the vastness of life and are confident in life's abundance, We are naturally generous and able to practice the third yama. So generosity balances out the stealing. That's also root chakra based, if anybody's familiar with the energy systems. Knowing that the root chakra is balanced gives us the feeling of security, that all of our needs are being met, that we have nothing to want, that we are taken care of, that our survival is not in danger. And I do find that a lot of people's root chakras are out of balance. They don't feel connected, they don't feel balanced, they don't feel centered, they don't feel grounded, moving too fast, and their pace of life is too quick. They don't have that moment to come back to center.
Can you repeat the third part of that quote?
Yeah. We are naturally generous.
Thank you.
And able to practice the third yama of non-stealing. So I will have this in the notes of the video that I sent to you, so you guys will have all of the different references and quotes as well. Then we move into the fourth yama, which is brahmacharya, the right use of energy, celibacy traditionally, or moderation and self-control. And so you want to set a boundary for moderation of your energy, and you're going to write it down as though it's already existing. So you are setting a healthy boundary for yourself. You're going to set that moderation. Today or every day, 8 o'clock p.m., I'm going to turn off my phone, or I'm going to turn off the electronics. Set that moderation for yourself. And then write it down. And if you need to even express it to somebody in order to make that start to become a reality for you, writing it down sets it in motion. Talking and telling it to somebody, almost like it cements it into reality, so that it also makes you accountable. You have accountability, and so you start implementing it. Okay, so set a boundary for moderation of your energy and write it down as though it is already in existence. And the quote that I chose was actually from F. Scott Fitzgerald, and he said, "Celibacy goes deeper than the flesh." So celibacy isn't always just restraint from sexual activity. Celibacy can be restraint from things that is overtaking our energy or that we are obsessing about. So if you find that you're constantly thinking about one thing over and over and over again, and you can't seem to pull your energy away and find time to do something else, that is needing a practice of celibacy, to stay away from something that is absorbing so much of your time and energy that it's unhealthy. Or taking away from the time that you need to spend for yourself or with family and loved ones, things like that. And then the last one, notice what you label as mine, okay? And change the wording to see how that shifts ownership. And how does it feel as you let that go? So there's so many things: my car, my house, my kids, my job, my this, my that. Everything is mine, 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 mine. Well, maybe it's mine. We always feel like we need to have ownership and control over things, even when it comes down to your children. My son, my kids. They're their own, right? We don't own them. We are gifted with them, and they grow up and they do their own things. So they are not ours. So when you maybe use them by name, or my this, when you're taking ownership of something, change the wording around it, and you're going to let go of that ownership and see how you relate to that. See how you're able to let go. There's another portion of the letting go aspect of, not all this is belonging to me. I may partake in participation, but it's not mine. And we feel like we need to own everything. So notice what you label as mine and change the wording to see how that shifts ownership. How does that feel as you begin to let things go? And as you start to let more and more things go, you develop more freedom. Material possession is one thing. The more we have, the more we have to work, the more we have to use our energy in order to sustain that one thing. When it comes down to house, cars, different things like that, you have to not just pay for it, but you have to upkeep it, you have to do the grounds, all of these things. If you were to find more simplicity or live within a more simple lifestyle, you have more freedom to do the things that actually are experiential, that you enjoy, which are more richness in your life of having relationships or experiences rather than things that anchor us down. And the quote that I have for this is, if our love is only a will to possess, it is not love. I don't know that I'm pronouncing this right, but it's Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a well-known spiritual leader. I don't know that I'm actually saying that, pronouncing it properly. But if our love is only a will to possess, it is not love. And so sometimes we do use the energy of love in order to keep things around us, to keep people the way that we want them. Is it really a gratitude love? Gratitude is the highest state of love that we can have for somebody. There's a lot of different versions of love, but are we using love to collect things in people or to get them to do the things that we want? Or are we really in generosity and gratitude for the person that they are and what they are able to share with us in this experience? So if our love is only a will to possess, it is not love. And that is part of apagraha, which is non-hoarding and moving into gratitude. So does anybody have any questions? There's a lot to take in for today. The next time that we come together to discuss the 8 limbs is kind of going to be the same. There's 5 niyamas as well, but then those are the foundations of what we're trying to cultivate here, and it's going to move more into asana practice, which is clarifying our bodies and our minds, and then it's going to move into breath work, which is also going to be doing the same thing. Then it moves into pratyahara, which is bringing our focus and up into the higher limbs, which actually brings us right into samadhi, which is that a state of blissfulness, of non-attachment, of being spiritual, being without the body. So these are things that we're doing to clean up our lives so that we have more freedom, we have more awareness, and we don't have as much attachment to the things that keep us so occupied that we can't find a state of peace. Okay? All right. Great job. So that's it for today with the 8 limbs. And I will be sending these notes over to you guys so you'll have all the information that I've presented today. Okay.